Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roach, your host for today's podcast. I'm excited to have XYPN member Erik Klumpp, owner of Chessie Advisors, a fee-only firm in Rochester Hills, Michigan, on the show today. Erik joined XYPN in September of 2014 and was one of the original members that year who built their advisory practices from the ground up. After gaining invaluable experience out of college at 4 different fee-only firms, Erik came to the conclusion that breaking out on his own was his best option. Although he had 2 young kids at home, he was determined to build a business that supported his family and his lifestyle. Erik talks candidly about what kind of sacrifice being a stay-at-home dad meant for the growth of his business during those first few years, and how he's been able to make up for what he describes as setbacks. Today, Erik is 6 years into his business and has since launched 2 different tax planning and preparation businesses. Erik talks a lot about his decision on partnering with another XYPN advisor to build out one of those tax businesses around student loans, and how, although he loves working with a teammate, he plans to keep his advisory business totally independent. Erik provides sage advice to folks looking to start their own business and is a shining example of what kind of impact, determination, and commitment can have on one's success. If you've ever wondered how you can do it all, from raising kids to running a firm, you won't want to miss today's episode.
XY Planning Network's annual benchmarking survey is out. Are you curious about the average number of clients XYPN members get in their first year, or how successful niches really are? To answer these burning questions and more, we've again enlisted a professional research firm to complete our annual benchmarking study. Get your copy hot off the press and discover vital statistics such as the median advisor revenue by years in practice and sources of firm growth, from referrals to blogging, social media, and more. Head over to xyplanningnetwork.com/study to purchase your copy today.
You can find any of the resources we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/241. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join a private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when you need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Erik Klumpp. Hey, Erik, welcome to the show.
Hey, Maddie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being on today. I'm so excited to introduce you to our listeners and for the listeners to have a chance to hear from you, Erik. Erik is one of XYPN's original members. There are only a few members that have been part of XYPN really since the beginning of 2014. Erik jumped into XYPN in September of 2014 and has been building an awesome business up until today. And we're going to talk all about what his experience has been in the industry and building up his business to where it is. So, Erik, why don't you do the honors and introduce yourself and your firm?
Yeah, so I'm Erik. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller. I'm owner of Chessie Advisors, registered investment advisor firm. I'm based in the Detroit suburb of Rochester Hills. As Maddie said, I'm a longtime member of XYPN. I'm not one of the original members, but I'm like the second tier. So I've been here a long time, seen a lot of growth in the network. I'm proud to be a part of it, and the network has provided a lot of support to me since starting my firm in 2014. So I'm also owner of a couple tax firms. One, Chessie Tax, started back in 2014 as well, and a recent firm, Student Loan Tax Experts, that was started just few months ago, which we can dive into later.
Before we get there, Erik, why don't you tell us a bit more about Chessie Advisors and what you've built?
As most everybody else in XY, it's a fee-only financial planning firm. What I started back in 2014, I'd been laid off from a previous job, really examining my life, what I was going to do next. I'd been in financial services, really pretty much all fee-only financial planning firms since 2003 when I came in the industry. So this was the spring of 2014. I decided, now what better time than now to start on my own. I always wanted to have my own firm. Life always gets in the way, and there's never a good time to start it. I'm not one of those that save for 5 years to start a firm. I know that ideally, in an ideal world, we'd always make sure everything, the stars line up, and you can start with a perfect cushion of everything and have it start great. But in real life, sometimes you're not able to do that. So you have to kind of take it as it comes. And in 2014, I found myself either completely getting out of the industry, trying to find something different. I'd been in financial planning. I'd been in the industry 11 years, and I was either totally get out of the industry or do what I'd always had a dream of doing and starting my own firm, see how it went. I had a 9-month-old son. I had about a 3-year-old son as well, or 2.5-year-old son. So it wasn't an easy decision. And really the leap meant that I had to pretty much watch them full time at home and try to start this on the side. Wouldn't have happened without the tremendous support of my wife, Stacy, who's a teacher. She kind of gave me free rein on being able to do this from the start, and kind of gave me the latitude to try to make it work over a period of years until the kids were in school. I really appreciate that. She's been a great support person for me in both of my business endeavors that I started back in 2014. Chessie Advisors, when I started that, I wanted to provide a fee-only financial planning firm for engineers, teachers. Detroit's got a lot of automotive workers. And that's really who I'd spent the better part of my previous career catering to. So I knew a lot about benefits, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, the big automakers, auto parts suppliers. And my wife's a teacher, so I wanted to kind of target teachers as well, because teachers, they get sold a lot of things, but they don't really get advice, real good advice from the financial industry, unfortunately. So they were one of my initial targets as far as a niche goes.
What gave you the confidence to jump ship and start your own firm? Not everyone has the confidence to do that, and it often takes a lot of intentional years of planning up to it, like you said. But it sounds like after the layoff, you were kind of prompted to do this. Were you looking up to anyone, or was there anyone that you were kind of following and hoping to be able to emulate in the future?
Prior to that, I'd worked at, I guess, 4 other advisor firms in varying sizes of businesses. So the first job I had out of college was working with corporate executives in the Detroit area, being financial counselors for them. The company itself had probably 1,600 people. It wasn't based in Michigan. I then worked at a regional accounting firm in their financial management and financial planning arm of that. Again, they had hundreds of employees throughout the company. Then I went to a smaller firm of about 20, and then a firm of about 3 before I was laid off. So I'd worked in all kinds of sizes of the industry. I never worked for a broker-dealer, never worked as a broker, but I'd always been on the either fee-based or fee-only side. So I had a good understanding of how to do just about everything in an RIA, from paperwork to actually providing financial planning to some ideas on how to market to the community and whoever you're targeting. So I had a good range of experience, and even working with all types of clients, from factory workers in the automotive industry all the way up to corporate executives. I'd worked with and small business owners that sold their businesses for $25-50 million. So the net worth range of people I've worked with, the salary range of folks that I've worked with, and just from a walk of life, I've worked with just about every aspect of that I could have possibly have worked for. So I feel that I had gotten a great not only education in my working career up until that point, but also I'd seen just about every type of client. So I knew kind of who I wanted to target, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. In 2014, for those of you listening that were around at that time in the industry, I think what really, I knew I wanted a financial planning firm, but what really jumped out at me was not only the fact that in April, Alan Moore and Michael Kitces decided to launch XYPN. But around that same time is when Sophia Berra published on kitces.com her, how to start a financial planning firm for under 10 grand. So I'd say the combination of XY being launched, which I knew I didn't have the resources in April to reach out and try to join the network in April. That's why I waited till September. But that in conjunction with Sophia's piece, just saying, hey, this is how it can be done, because it was the Wild West. You had no idea. You're going into wilderness territory with how to launch a firm, and that really gave kind of a guidebook for me to really jump in and get started. It wasn't starting a firm is not easy, and it's not something you shouldn't think heavily about. But that gave me a little bit peace of mind that I could do it, and it's worth a shot. So.
Yeah, the experience you had was very valuable in terms of being able to kind of tee you up for building the firm that you wanted. When did you get your CFP?
So I started working in 2003, right out of college. I didn't get my CFP until, let's say, May of 2010, somewhere in that range. But the previous firms I'd worked, the first one out of college, really, it probably provided me more education on the job about all kinds of financial planning topics than I would have ever received from even the CFP board materials or studying or even working with other advisor firms. The company, ACO company, was just tremendous as far as supporting its team and really educating new planners on how to do financial planning and what the topics are. It was incredible. Without that base, had I jumped out of college to my second firm or my third firm, totally different experience. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have started a tax firm, for that matter, because I wouldn't have done tax returns. I really got an enormous base of financial planning knowledge from that for the three or so years I spent at my very first firm. That laid the groundwork really for where I am today.
I'd love to dig into that. What specifically was so helpful about that first firm? Was it the structure of how they trained you? Was it the type of experience?
Yeah, it was really new hires that come on, they would have really coursework with other offices and planners in the same position as myself. New hires, I want to say it was a 12-month or so program, and then there'd be continuing education type stuff, but it'd be topics like ISOs, restricted stock, or some crazy estate planning techniques that you just don't learn anywhere else. How to do tax returns, AMT issues, really diving heavily into complex financial planning topics that, unless you randomly see that in your career, it's just not going to be taught to you. If you go to work for a firm that's got 3 people, nobody has time to train you. If you work for a firm of 20 people, depending on how that firm's structured, again, they don't have time to train you. So you end up having to get that knowledge from reading online articles, trying to gather as much as you can from CFP type materials or other designations that you might pursue to get specialized knowledge. But I got a tremendous base of knowledge right from that first firm.
And having worked at 4 different firms before you launched yours, were you not able to see a future at any of those firms? Was being part of a larger firm just not really what you wanted? What prompted you to go and be a business owner instead?
Yeah, I think in the back of my mind, I'd always wanted to have my own business. There's a period of time when my dad, he was in a completely different business line, but he'd always thought, or there was I don't remember when it was, a point in time, maybe when I was high school or right before high school, when he had seriously considered starting a business with a colleague, and it never happened for whatever reason. I don't know the specifics. He's gone now, so I can't ask him why he didn't end up starting it. But it's probably because my sister and I were in high school, and there's a lot of financial risk. Starting a business, there's substantial financial risk, and given the proximity to college and everything else, just it's tough to do at that stage of your life. So for me, given that my kids were young, if I screwed up and didn't work out, I could probably get a job someplace else doing financial planning. So for me, it wasn't as big of a it wasn't as big of a jump as it might be for somebody else that maybe that's older.
And I want to give you a shout out, Erik. You were one of the first members I ever worked with as the director of Getting Shit Done back in the day. And I remember you telling me that you had 2 small kids at home, and that really took me off guard. I wasn't expecting to hear and talk to someone who was at their home office tell me that they've got kids in the house and they were running their business at the same time. And you really laid kind of my expectations of the quality of members that XYPN attracts, and that I've met so many, hundreds and hundreds now of dads that are home with their kids that are building their businesses, moms that are home with their kids. What was it like to have kids at home while you started a business?
It wasn't terribly easy. It definitely set me back. My progression here with both original firms definitely got set back. So, my story is not the same as some other members that come on the podcast here, or that they're hitting 150,000 in revenue in the first year. I have 120 clients. It just wasn't realistic for me. I had limited time to really get out and grow my business. Not only was I staying home watching the kids, that same summer I launched my firm. I broke my leg playing soccer.
That's right.
Set me back I don't know, 6 months at least, because I ended up having surgery and stuff. So everything happened that first year to try to push me out of the business, I guess, of running my own business. But I kind of stuck through it, as the years went on, and business wasn't flowing in the door like crazy. It wasn't, it was not a stream or waterfall coming over a mountain. The first couple of years was a trickle at best. So for me, the focus was just understanding what I wanted to do with the business, who I really wanted to target, making sure my fees were what I want them to be, really chatting with other members of XY to try to get through it all, because my main job really was watching the kids, because I wasn't servicing clients. I didn't have clients to service. So on the tax side of things, it took off a little bit quicker because everyone's got an immediate need for tax preparation. And one of the reasons why I started that business, Chessie Tax, was number one, because it was easy to launch. Number two, I'd had plenty of tax preparation experience prior to starting that firm in 2014. And because everyone needs taxes done, and it's an easier sale. It's not a 3-year sales cycle trying to get someone to become a tax client necessarily. It's either they want to become one or they don't. Financial planning, life gets in the way. Yeah, I'll work with you. I'm just not ready right now. 6 months later, it goes on and they're still not ready to work. But then 3 years later, they call you up and say, hey, we've been pushing this off for 3 years. And I know we've been meaning to call you, but we haven't. So tax is a much easier sale. And the reason for starting the tax firm, other than the fact that I had experience and it was easy to start, was that it really was not only a stickiness factor. If I could get the advisory clients to become tax clients, if they ever wanted to leave, it's tougher. Then they got to hire 2 new people potentially, and the fact that I'm growing my tax firm is a potential pool of clients that I could serve on the advisory side. So that was really the goal from the start. One of the previous firm, that first firm I talked about, the ACO company, they did tax preparation. They had a tax department, so we prepared taxes, and it was tremendous, tremendously sticky for clients. So I kind of wanted to create something that was very similar to that, and thus the fact that I created 2 firms. I wanted to keep them separate because if I ever wanted to move away from the tax firm, I didn't have to completely decouple everything of the advisory practice. So I made a conscious effort to have those be 2 distinct firms.
Interesting. And how do you balance that? Do you have the same kind of marketing program for each, the financial planning firm and the tax firm, or how do you go about finding clients for each of them if they aren't the same entity?
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily take what I'm doing on the planning side and anyone listening from a marketing perspective, don't do what I've done, because I've done nothing to attract clients. I have no real marketing strategy on the planning side. It's really just inbound stuff. On the tax side, I'm part of the Dave Ramsey ELP, Endorsed Local Provider program. So I get folks coming my way from that. There's a couple other places I market the tax firm just because it's easier. There's no compliance that you have to, even though I'm the CCO of my advisory practice, I don't have to save my marketing stuff for the tax firm. Whereas on the advisory side, you've got to document everything that you do. So it's much easier to market. And like I said before, it's a much easier sale to try to turn somebody into a tax client than it might be for an advisory side. So, I'm working through some of that stuff now. And my big push for 2020 is to really dive into that pool of clients on the tax side and really start kind of weeding through them, seeing if I can convert some of them over. So I think what I do in the planning side can benefit a lot of those clients. I just haven't been cognizant of making them aware that I also do financial planning. Some of them might come to me on the tax side and not know that I do financial planning because they are two different firms, two different websites. I don't really cross market much at all. Mm-hmm. So it's something on my 2020 roadmap.
Yeah, I've heard other advisors talk about how when they offer tax planning, either separately or kind of housed under their financial planning firm, that it really does open up the conversation to the other needs of the financial picture for those clients. And it actually really becomes an easier conversation to have that, hey, I do offer this other support service that could really help you figure out X, Y, and Z. Have you found that to be an easy conversation to have with those tax clients?
Yeah, it is. And I try to dive in if I see that they've got, obviously if they're getting 1099s with dividends and stuff, I'll ask for the statement, end of the year statement, just to see, what the portfolio looks like, maybe get a beginning of the year statement, see if I can see if any fees are coming out for advisory fees, just so I have an idea. Are they paying somebody to manage an account? Are they just self-managing it? I haven't found it too easy to convert those clients over. I haven't really pushed hard because, especially in this day and age, when the market's up for 10 straight years, everyone's a market genius. Mm-hmm. If they're managing on their own, they're getting 20% returns because they invested in the S&P 500 in 2019. Why do I need to hire somebody? I can get 20% myself. From an investment standpoint, in today's market, it's tougher than it probably was in 2011 to get clients who had just come off the horrible time period, 2008 and 2009. They don't want to manage themselves. They may or may not want to be invested in the market because of what just happened, but they're more open to getting advice. Mm-hmm. So it's really just trying to determine the best approach, realizing that because it is financial planning, and maybe it's that they manage it on their own, or maybe it's not, and life just really gets in the way. You wouldn't believe how many people I talk to, even on the tax side, that say, "Yeah, I want to use you for financial planning," and 3 months go by, nothing, and they say, "Yeah, reach out to me for this," and I reach out to them, and nothing happens. Life, it's not a pressing issue for most people. Financial planning is not. It just isn't. Taxes, they have to get done by April 15th. Financial planning, it doesn't need to be done by a certain deadline.
Do you think that's because of a lack of education about our industry and the value that it is? I would like to think that most people could benefit from working with an advisor like you. But really, as I got into this industry, I recognized that a lot of people that I told I was in this industry were very confused it even existed. If it was, if they knew about it, they knew it was something bad and icky, and they don't want to talk to people about their money because they know that they're going to be charged a bunch of fees or so forth and so forth. Having been in this industry for a number of years, have you seen anything kind of change amongst the general populace of their understanding of what fee-only financial planning is?
Yeah, I think so. You definitely see inbound folks to my advisory firm that either found me through NAPFA or they found me online because they were searching for fee only. I wouldn't say that's the majority of folks, or we'd be getting tremendous amount of leads just without doing any marketing whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I think for most people, like I said, the market's done so well, they can do it themselves, or they can read blogs and they can read these money coaches that are online that are not registered investment advisors, kind of flying under the radar and doing something quote unquote similar to what we're doing, but not having to be regulated by anybody. They can get advice from them. They can get advice from blogs. They can manage money themselves. it goes back to the race to zero fees and taxes and the race to zero fees on the investment side, and not valuing any of that because it's free. It's free. You go to Fidelity and they get free review of their retirement plan. They go to Schwab, they get free service. I had a call with a prospect the other day that said, I've got everything on a couple sheets of paper. I just want you to review and tell me if I'm doing a good job. Okay, well, it's going to cost a certain amount of money to review that. It depends on what you want. You want me to go through a full retirement plan? It's going to be X amount of dollars. If you want me to just literally look at the paper and have a conversation with you, I could probably charge you a couple hours worth of fee. People just don't want to pay. So, and maybe it's part of the country you're in. In the Midwest and Detroit, we're not swimming in RSUs and stock options and everything else like you might be in California or New York or other parts of the country. It's just not the case. Like if you have GM stock and you get stock options from them, it's probably next to worthless. It was worthless at one point when they filed bankruptcy, and even newer issues within the last few years, it's not going gangbusters. So it depends on the area of the country you're probably in, and the fact that there's so many free options, quote unquote free options out there, that it makes financial advice seem like it's unimportant. Same with tax planning. We were having a conversation the other day at an enrolled agent event in the area. I'm an enrolled agent as well. And we're just kind of talking about fees and what the average fee in that group was for tax preparation. It was an interesting conversation, kind of eye-opening to see, even in that one room, what the range of fees were. And the instructor, after we had kind of went through and kind of given an average ballpark of what our fees were, and we kind of went around the room, he said, do you have any idea what the average fee of a tax return at H&R Block is? And people are guessing various amounts, and he said, well, you can pull it from their annual report. It's around $320 for an average return, and everyone was shocked. I think the average return cost in our room $210 to $220.
Wow.
For tax professionals. These are enrolled agents. Some of them are CPAs. H&R Block is charging $320, and it's just crazy to think that you may be way undercharging. You think you're doing a good service, and you think that your clients aren't going to pay you fees, but there's another entity out there that kind of is joked about. It's kind of a joke of the industry. You go to H&R Block. They may screw it up. They may do it right. Who knows? You never know what you're going to get. But they're making more money than tax professionals that have their own practices. So it's just crazy to think about.
Fascinating. I'm interested, given that you have these two separate businesses and a third that I do want to talk about soon. Do you enjoy one more than the other? I mean, genuinely speaking, is there something that you jump out of bed for that is in one firm that isn't in the other?
I really love the advisory practice. I started the tax practice in 2014 because it was easy to start. I had experience with it. I knew how to do tax returns, and I knew it was a valuable service I could provide to clients. My real passion is the financial planning piece.
And why is that?
So it's just what I always wanted to do, I guess, since back when I can remember. Probably when I decided in college to change from mechanical engineering to finance.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do financial planning. That's the reason I went into finance. Was
there anything in your life that made you interested in financial planning? How did you learn about it being a giving profession? Because when I learned about finance and I knew it was about a bunch of spreadsheets and people making a lot of money, I didn't realize there was a personal side to it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was maybe in the early mid 90s. When I was in high school, I'd pull up the paper at the end of the day and look at stock quotes just to see. Had interest in stocks. CNBC was kind of coming into its own around that time. It wasn't quite to the .com era yet. That was later 90s, but watching shows on CNBC at night. And Bill Griffith was a host. I'd always watch. I can't remember the show. It might have been like the Money Show or something.
Mm.
It was every night. I'd watch that about investing, and then when I ended up transferring out of mechanical engineering to finance, I got a internship for one semester with what was called American Express Financial Advisors, which is now Ameriprise.
Mm.
So what I did in that office was really prepare financial plans for the advisor there. So for 2 months, I think, I was preparing financial plans. It was interesting to me. And I think that's when it really solidified to me that, hey, this is something I really want to do. I don't want to sell stuff. I don't want to be a stockbroker. I want to, help people plan for their future. So, and that would have been my sophomore year in college. So from that moment on, I knew that I wasn't looking to get a corporate finance job or international finance or be an investment banker or anything like that. I really wanted to be some sort of financial advisor. When I came out of college in 2003, the market was crappy because the dot-coms already blown up. It was after September 11th. And really, aside from the job that I ended up finding, every other financial service job was some sort of either a brokerage position or it was a sales, like insurance position. There's really nothing in between. So I'm glad I found what I did find when I found it.
I'm interested to hear how you service your clients. Could you talk to us about what the typical engagement looks like? Are you meeting with them monthly? Do you write them an email every week? What's your relationship with your clients in an ongoing fashion?
Yeah, so I've got a couple different services. It's anywhere from a lot of project-based stuff, usually over the course of say 4 to 8 weeks, putting together some sort of plan, retirement plan or long-term plan. In that case, it is what it is. It's a project-based. I meet with them 2 3 times over the course of that period of time, and that's it. They go on their way. For my ongoing clients, it's really, we meet at least yearly. I do check in with them from time to time. It's not always regular. It's not always monthly. It's not always quarterly. Sometimes they reach out to me. Sometimes I reach out to them. Kind of depending on the season and what I know they have going on. We'll communicate. And then I've got some investment only clients that I just manage their investments for, where we review their allocation on an annual basis, but really not a whole lot of other conversations throughout the year because I'm not doing any planning for them necessarily. So it kind of depends on the service that I'm providing.
How does technology play a role in your firm? Are you meeting with clients remotely? Are they using e-money? What's the tech stack look like, and what's the engagement like on behalf of the client?
Yeah, so I do use e-money. So I've got a client site that they can log into, which serves as my financial planning software. So they've got a dashboard they can view. And I'd say of my ongoing clients, maybe half of them are semi-regular as far as going in there and checking out stuff. There's definitely a lot that don't go in there at all. It's completely up to them how they want to use it. I'll go in there and update their plan from time to time, but they can use it how they will. A lot of clients, it's meeting with over the phone. I don't do a lot of Zoom meetings or remote meetings via the web. I think that's something that will continue probably this year. I'll probably start building that out a bit more. And I do work from home, so it's I try to do as much as I can from here. I do meet clients in their homes though. A lot of my clients are local here, so some of the meetings, if they're local, I will meet with them at their house or at a local restaurant or something.
Yeah, was there an intention behind kind of creating a local firm? I've talked to other members whose niches are actually Chicago locals or Chattanooga locals. There's actually kind of a subset of
That's a
people
niche.
that you can. I mean, I'm not the niche police, but
Okay,
I would
I didn't
say
know.
that
I
if you
didn't
focused,
realize that was a niche. It's like
it
females being a niche, right? Or
well, it
males.
depends on how big your town is. If you're talking Bozeman, Montana, you only got
Yeah,
50,000 people here.
that's true.
Did you decide to make it a local practice? Was that your intention?
I don't know. I'm 39, so I'm not a millennial. I like
You're
the personal aspect of things, so call me old fashioned. My wife and I chose Rochester Hills because there's like an old downtown here in
Mm.
Rochester, and it's kind of like the small town we grew up in Indiana. So I like the small town feel. I like old fashioned type. Ideally, I'd have a small location here in the downtown.
Yeah.
Stop in a little office. Probably like something. I haven't been out to Bozeman, but probably something like you guys have there.
Yeah.
That's what I envision. Long term, I'd love to have like a little office, and so I like the personal aspect of it. I think
Yeah.
you can lose a lot with just video conferencing.
Mhm.
It's convenient, and I think it's nice to have, even for folks that are local. If I'm dealing with somebody on the other side of the Detroit metro area that's 45 minutes to an hour away, maybe I still meet with them on Zoom or on the phone, but I could
Mhm.
always meet them in person if I needed to. That's
Right.
much different than having a client in Alaska that I never meet because I'm never
Mhm.
traveling there, or somebody in Washington or something. I'm not getting on a plane to, they're not paying me enough to get on a plane to fly out and meet with them.
Yeah.
I think the personal aspect is big for me,
Yeah.
at least on the planning side. On the tax side, I've got a lot of clients I never meet with, but for the most part, they're local. So if I needed to meet with them, I could. But planning, it's pretty much all local, unless it's folks that I've worked with in the past that have moved away, and we
Mhm.
remain clients.
Mm.
Which I do have clients in Florida and other parts of the country.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating where the advisor is located and then where all the clients are located. There's so many advisors that, like you, really do like that in-person relationship. It's just something that adds a lot of integrity to the conversation and personalization. But also, there's a whole subset of advisors that really, despite having a client in their town or even just down the block, it really is a virtual relationship. Do you
Yeah.
find that certain people kind of crave the virtual? Are you having people ask for it? Or are they
No,
mostly
I
kind of
really haven't.
expecting in person?
I haven't seen that a lot.
Interesting.
I try, if someone signed up with me for either a project based plan or something ongoing, I'd like to meet with them at least the first time.
Yeah.
So I try to have that interaction. It is more personable. I think it adds a lot of credibility to the relationship,
Yeah.
as opposed to just, hey, let's see you. Like even you, Maddie, until I met you the first time at Charlotte XYPN. It wasn't live. I remember what it
Mhm.
was called, annual conference.
Good
Um,
job.
it was just, you were just a face on the computer or a voice on the phone.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
um, it's nice meeting people in person, and I think with everything we have going on this day and age with technology, technology is good to a
Yeah.
point, but I think it loses a lot with how much we interact with virtual stuff, and it's only going to get worse.
Mm. Thanks for that perspective. I want to switch topics just a little bit. And I know you recently teamed up with a fellow XYPN member, Ben Martinick, on a project, and you ended up opening up a different business. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we roomed together again this year at XYPN Live in St. Louis, which we had done the year before. He was out one night talking to some folks and had an idea, and came back, and we were chatting about it the next day, and I thought it sounded like a great idea, and I said, "Well, if you need a partner, let me know. I'll be
Wow.
happy to join you." So what we ended up starting, it just launched say December. So it's called Student Loan Tax Experts. So studentloantaxexperts.com. Basically, it's a tax firm that specializes in anyone who has student loans, and they're concerned about the tax ramifications.
Mm.
There's a lot of CPAs, a lot of enrolled agents, a lot of tax preparers that will prepare returns. They'll do merit filing separate returns if they need to, but they don't necessarily understand why they need to do that, or why or what other issues there are surrounding student loans as far as how repayments go, and how to limit your payment amounts if you're going to have loans forgiven, or really what the ultimate benefits are to maybe filing separately and paying more in tax, but lowering your student loan payment and allowing the balance to continue to grow, maybe in the loans, and have that forgiven at some point in the future. So student loan tax experts, we specialize in student loan income tax planning and preparation. Ben is a certified student loan professional from the CSLA Institute. It's run by Jance Hoffman, and Heather Jarvis is on on the board. So two big names in the student loan arena. Heather's definitely been at XYPN
Number
in
of
the
times.
past. So we wanted to kind of focus in that community because there's not really, as far as we know, there's not a lot of people out there that either know about student loans and how they work with taxes, or people that are actually doing what we're attempting to do here. Where I fit into all this, I've definitely done taxes for student loan borrowers in the past, but I've run a tax firm so this is my 6th year running a tax firm. So I'm kind of I'm the director of tax operations for student loan tax experts. So I'm kind of doing the behind the scenes stuff, making sure everything operates properly, and definitely helping out with the student loan married filing separate analyses, and I'll be helping on the tax returns, either from a preparation or review standpoint this coming tax season, but really from an operations standpoint, I'm kind of running the show.
Any listeners who have ever questioned whether they should come to XYPN Live or not should reconsider now, because we've just gotten an example of how life and your business can really change.
Yeah, you might walk out of there with another business or some other business idea. Who knows?
That is what we hope, and our goal is always to make sure advisors are meeting and greeting each other. Erik is a really good example of someone that has tapped and found another longtime XYPN member and found some synergy at XYPN Live. I really encourage all listeners to consider coming. That not only is the content on point, but we provide ample networking opportunities for times and things like this to happen, and let kind of the magic work as we put brilliant advisor after brilliant advisor in a room together. But Erik, I must ask, as someone who was really convinced and dedicated to running his own business, what's it like to be a partner now?
Different.
Is it?
Yeah,
Tell us about it.
You have to kind of bounce ideas off each other to
ask
permission for stuff. Should we do this or do that? It's not as easy as, well, today I'm going to do this. Or, there's another stakeholder. There sure is. So, but it's been good. Ben's great, very knowledgeable, tremendous guy. He's been doing taxes for, 4 or 5 years. He's an enrolled agent as well. Mm-hmm. Really, he's got his own planning firm too. Great guy. Mm-hmm. He's been on the podcast in the past, I think. But, we're just trying to provide a service to what we feel is an untapped market, to provide knowledgeable tax planning for those folks that maybe have an analysis done that say, you should do an income-based repayment, or you should refinance your loans, or maybe you should file separately. A lot of places that offer that advice, they put their hands up when it comes to taxes. Mm-hmm. Maybe you should file separately, but we're not going to tell you should or not. So we're here to really crunch the numbers on the tax side and really determine if it makes sense from a financial standpoint. Wow. Both short-term and long-term. And then, we'll be here to prepare your taxes, whether you're in a community property state or not. We're here to add support to those clients, or even advisors that have clients that they're working with that they want to trust tax returns with somebody that knows what they're talking about when it comes to student loans and how to do married filing separately. Other than, divorce type cases or separation mm-hmm. cases, there's other reasons to use married filing separately. And a lot of CPAs or a lot of tax preparers don't know that, and probably honestly don't have the time to learn it or see how it really applies, because they don't see a lot of student loans. So that's why we're here. Fascinating. What a niche. Good job. It is. Yeah, so I didn't really, I'm not totally niche specific on the advisory practice, but I guess now I do have a tax firm now that's very, very specific. Very specific. I love that. I recently interviewed Steve and Michelle Smallenberger, Robert Stoll, and Trevor Meyer, who have all just teamed up together under the Financial Design Studios umbrella, which was Michelle and Steve's firm. And I've seen this over the years happen a bit more, that not necessarily XYPN members, but with each other, but XYPN members end up teaming up and like similar to you and Ben, find that there is a really awesome working relationship. There's complementary expertise available, and the power of two really is more than one. Have you ever considered, Erik, merging your firm with another firm, your advisory business? No, I have not. Interesting. And I don't see it in the foreseeable future. I like having control of some things. So it's nice to be able to make my own decisions. When I got laid off in late 2013, and I was kind of reevaluating my life, like George Costanza on the floor of Jerry's apartment, on Seinfeld. I didn't want to be a sports broadcaster because I'd never been in sports, but
You could do it. You could do it.
I know I could, but those are reserved for those folks that used to play sports, according to Jerry. No, I was looking at my life, and if I ever went back to the financial planning world, I knew I couldn't work for somebody else. I got to a point where I did not want a boss if I was going to be in financial planning. So in starting my own firm, I knew that it was either me or nothing. So I'm comfortable at this stage to keep rolling on my own on the planning side. I'll see how the thing with Ben goes. I think we could do some great things with student loan tax experts, but on the planning side, I have no intentions of merging any firms anytime soon.
Yeah, and there's
I'm not
no.
saying it's not going to be on the table at some
Right.
point in the future, but I want to see how I can build this further.
Yeah, I think that's the general sentiment of most XYPN members, that the reason that they have left their former jobs is because you quit managers, not companies, but also that you really do have a desire to work independently, and there's no right or wrong. I'm just interested that over the years we see more and more advisors kind of team up.
Yeah, and it depends on what you want to grow, right? If you want to build a $1 billion firm, $1 billion AUM. Are you going to do it on your own? Maybe, but you're going to have to be you're not the majority of folks out there. So if you want to have 3,000 clients, you want $1 billion firm, you want a miniature version of Edelman Financial, you're going to probably have to team up. But if you're looking to build something smaller, I don't know if lifestyle practice is really the best word to use. But I want to build something manageable, something that I can be proud of, something that maybe if my kids want to get into the business, that they could potentially step into and join me down the road. But I'm not going to know unless I attempt it on my own. So I'm not ready to merge, and I don't see myself merging anytime soon. Maybe on the tax side, but we'll see how this goes.
I hear that. You've already gotten breaking a leg out of the way. I'm interested. I'm interested in what keeps you up at night, Erik, about these 3 businesses of yours and in your life. Is there anything that really kind of weighs heavily on you?
About the businesses? No, making sure that my revenue continues to grow. It was tough the first 3-4 years in getting revenue in the door. So it sucked. And it's gotten better the last few years. It takes time. And like I said at the onset, I wasn't somebody that had 5 years worth of capital sitting in an account ready for me to launch a firm at some point. So it was just something that needed to be done. And I jumped in with both feet. So that kind of keeps me up at night, making sure that I've got enough money to pay the bills. And as my kids get older, making sure that they're able to be in the stuff that they want to be in sport-wise and in college that's coming up in a few years here. It's crazy to think about, when I started my firm, my oldest was 3. He's 9.5.
Wow, so, time flies.
Yeah, he'll be in college in 9 years, I guess. It's crazy.
Totally crazy. What advice would you give yourself 10 years ago or so as you were approaching this kind of inflection point in your career of breaking away, maybe a little timid to do so, but obviously intentional enough to be able to pull it off? What advice would you have given yourself?
10 years ago. So that would have been 2010. Just got my CFP. I would have told myself back then, if you're in a job situation that you don't love, that you do that is detrimental to your health, get out. Like, you don't try sticking it out. If you know it's a bad decision to stay, don't delay it. Just find something else. There's plenty of other things out there. That's the biggest from a job standpoint. Looking forward, I guess, a few more years. When I did launch my own firm, there's just so many things with starting a firm that you don't know. Maybe planning around how I'm going to grow the business better, because I kind of just jumped in and just kind of winging it, hoping things happen. And they do. It just takes longer. So maybe being a little bit more focused in the very first few years try to make some arrangements to get out and network, even with having kids at home. It's tough for me to, my situation is so much different than a lot of others that it's tough for me to give advice, broad-based advice, because my background is completely different than somebody that doesn't have any kids, or the kids are all in school and they're launching a firm. That's different. If you're looking ahead to your work week and you've got at least 40 hours to yourself from the start, it's different than, I've got kids the whole time and trying to figure out how to plan around that, how to grow your business around that. So I could have done more business growth in the first couple of years of my business, and that's probably what I'd tell myself now. Try to figure out a way to drum up a little more business earlier.
Interesting. Good advice. I really have always admired you, Erik, and your commitment to your business as you grew it, despite having kids at home and breaking a leg in the first year. You've really taught me a lot about this industry. We've worked together for over 5 years now. I really appreciated you sharing everything you have with our listeners today. I think there's a lot here that will resonate and land well with our audience, knowing that there's never really a perfect time to starting a firm. Your advice to not stick in a job that is hurting you or taking away your soul is really good advice. And I think your story of how you built this firm, although it was not the most perfect time in your life to do so, you've really been able to do it effectively. Do you have any final words for our listeners, Erik?
My advice to those in XY or outside of XY would basically be find some people that you're able to talk with, some colleagues, especially if you're starting a firm. That got me through probably the worst times in my life here as I was growing my firms. Probably year 2, year 3. It's horrible. Had some outside things going on that affected the business, and really being able to reach out to, at the time, there were members within XY, talk on a weekly basis. It's tough if you're at home running a business out of your house, not seeing anyone throughout the whole week, nobody to bounce ideas off of, not wanting to talk to your spouse about all this stuff because, she's giving you support to launch a business. You don't want to drag her down or, put her in a position to say, you got to stop.
Right.
So find somebody to talk to, find somebody you can vent with. And I've had that support since, joining XYPN. Once I joined in September of 2014, I had that support, and that's really what's kept me going. That's why I'm still sitting here almost 6 years later, just being able to talk to somebody and have somebody we could vent with. So find that person within XY, outside of XY, a colleague, somebody that you can have a conversation with on a regular basis, weekly, monthly, whatever, because you need outside perspective. You got to be able to vent, and you can't always do it to your spouse if you have a spouse.
Really good advice. Thank you so much for being on XYPN Radio, Erik. It's been a total pleasure today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a safe and wonderful day.
XY Planning Network's annual benchmarking survey is out. Are you curious about the average number of clients XYPN members get in their first year, or how successful niches really are? To answer these burning questions and more, we've again enlisted a professional research firm to complete our annual benchmarking study. Get your copy hot off the press and discover vital statistics such as the median advisor revenue by years in practice and sources of firm growth, from referrals to blogging, social media, and more. Head over to xyplanningnetwork.com/study to purchase your copy today.
Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN Radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with Alan and Kitsis, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.